So I was reading your
Yeah.
book, and thank you again for sending it. And I again haven't finished it. I've only gotten about 43 pages in, but I really like what I'm reading, and it has influenced the way that I'm thinking about writing my own book. And that's the thing I wanted to thank you for. Because as I was reading through, and to pace it up and to really kind of take the cognitive load off of me, I'm actually having the avatar read it to me on my computer. So that I find that to be very helpful because I can just kind of focus on the story very passively, just absorb it. And I can pace it up to go a little faster than usual. So I'm actually going to be able to get through the book a little quicker. And I find that to be really exciting, to be able to, I think
Yeah.
for like a first draft, that's a great way to do it. Because I'm not
Yeah.
going in there doing any line edits. Like that is not a thing. I'm just reading it. And I kind of want to get a sense of what you're trying to accomplish. And I love the characters that you have. You've got Captain Pellersby, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many really interesting names, and you're obviously kind of punching up the comic or comedic quality of it. It feels like the novel's almost in hypercolor when I think about it. And it's a very smooth kind of move through this fully realized mall. And I remember you telling me that you had a lot of different real malls from your
Yeah.
past, and you're kind of cobbling together kind of
Yes.
the best pieces of those. And I love that. And yeah, the things that don't hang together well for me, I'm hoping they kind of pull together by the end of the narrative. The one thing I was hoping to get more of just in that first section was more of a sense of Madeline Tin's reason to try to be the detective. You've established
Yeah.
very clearly that she has this intense desire to go solve this mystery. That's very well established and repeated, but I don't have any sense of who she is from her past. I'm assuming it'll come up, but in that first section, I really don't have any reason why it's so compelling to her. So if that was a choice
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm going to set up the fact that she is quasi maniacal about, getting this thing done, and then I'll kind of pepper in the why later. Cool. But like
Yeah.
as a reader just kind of going through it, I'm like, why the fuck is this lady so hell bent to do this? Basically ignoring her own responsibilities so that she can do this thing for somebody else. Like it was weird. So I'm hoping that
Yeah.
that pays
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that I'm hoping comes out in the end, and that is something that I did on purpose. I think I peppered it in to the first draft because it's something that I want to be aware of. Whether or not that actually reads, that's something that's going to have to be discussed in future drafts. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So yeah, I left it very sparse at the beginning so that hopefully we can find out a lot of folks' motivations as we move on through the rest of the novel. And if I could pull it off, success. If not, it ain't going to get picked up.
Right. Well, I mean, one thing that you did really well is when you introduce a new character, that their name is distinct from the other names that we've experienced. You've done a really good job of sort of visually and with an auditory sensibility differentiating the people. You've also done a really good job of differentiating the way that people talk. I love the Caroline character because she's just a motor mouth and she's sort of unfocused, maybe a little flighty, and that comes through in the writing. So that's really, really nice. And then Madeline
Yeah.
Tin is very severe. She's very direct. She's almost blunt, like blunt force, in the way
Yeah.
that she talks,
Yeah.
which again comes through really nicely. Captain Pellersby's a little old world almost, kind of like, a throwback
Yeah.
to a bygone era. So you're like playing with these tropes really well, and you've picked a lot of points of view that seem to orbit each other very cleanly. But the reason that I wanted to talk with you about it is that in reading through the first 43 pages of the book, it has encouraged me to be less concerned with prose quality and really more concerned with forward momentum. It felt like a lot
Yeah.
of what you had kind of in between the compelling pieces was almost like chatter, just sort of like not babbling, but just sort of like keeping the voice active and just keep going until you kind of come across or trip up on something that's super important, and then you linger on that, and then you kind of you run and ramble and whatnot until you kind of hit that next important piece, and then you linger on that. And I think that's
Yeah.
where I get tripped up. I kind of get to the natural end of a scene and it's closed off because that's the way it would be in a book. And then I go, all right, well, what's next? And then that's a kind of a
Yeah.
stopping point. Whereas what you are doing, or at least tell me if I'm wrong, but what it looks like you're doing is you're forcing yourself to keep moving forward to get to that next important piece. Am I right?
Yeah, that's one of the things I hit upon on writing this was that I think it's Caroline who mentions that if you don't solve a crime in 48 hours, then that you're never going to solve it. I think I tried to do it a little funnier than saying that, but that's kind of the thing, and that's something that I need to work out in subsequent drafts. Is I want this to happen very quickly. This is sort of an ordinary day. You have ordinary days at work in this mall, but this thing has happened, and so I just wanted it to keep moving, forward. And I love dialogue, and I really love dialogue. We've talked about dialogue on this podcast, and I love how you can get a person through dialogue, and that's why I've been very proud in this draft of Caroline, and she's probably my favorite character out of everyone because of what she becomes towards the end. What I want her to become towards the end, if that came again, first draft, lots of, I think I did that and maybe you didn't. So yeah, I just wanted it to sort of like have this thing where there wasn't going to be any downtime because we had to take care of it. Let's see if we can take care of it. And it's exciting for everyone that's taking care of it because it's such a different thing that's happened, this crime. So yeah, thank you. I'm hoping that I can keep that up in subsequent drafts.
Yeah, and I think you're right that you will want to redraft the whole thing instead of taking it and trying to massage the language or, cut sections and replace sections. I think a redraft might actually be the right approach because then you can compare those two and see where, what jumps out at you as being really strong, and you can start kind of cobblestoning that together rather than kind of handcuffing yourself to the way you first expressed it whenever the first time you thought of it was. So, and that's different from what I had thought. Like I thought, okay, well, I wrote these words and these are the words, so we're going to make the words better. It's like, well, no, you don't have to hang on to that. Maybe that first draft just to exist, right? The whole point of it is for it to exist. Maybe that was just to find what the story is. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, now I know who the characters are. Now I know what the story is. All right, cool. I'm going to go write it. And like, if you have an unparaphrasable line that you want to retain, all right, well, cool. Bring it into the new draft, but don't be beholden to this thing that was really just your scribbles trying to find the story. And I can say that sounds great, right? It's like, yep, problem solved, go write, have fun. I can tell even saying that and knowing that's the right thing to do, that is going to be very difficult for me to do. Just being honest. Yeah. It's going to be very difficult for me.
Yeah.
But I like the way you're approaching it,
I'm trying to now figure out how I best want to attack the second draft. I need to reread the whole thing again, and then I need to figure out how to organize my thoughts. And I've been scattershot in that regard. I have a couple notes on a notes app. I have a couple scribbles here. I have like an app that has like some organization things there. So I need to get back into that world somehow. And I'm hoping that I can find the time to do that sometime this summer.
Well, I hope so as well. I'm going to keep reading this draft because I want to see the story in its entirety. And when I finish that, I'll let you know and we can have a conversation about the story arcs and the character arcs and whatnot. But this is definitely the right thing. If folks out there can, if you have a work in progress and you have someone that you can trust to not stomp on your heart, then give them that work and let them read it, not with a critical eye, but just with kind of a look towards...
an eye towards the bigger picture with sympathy towards who you are as a writer.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to,
Exactly. Looking at the painting instead of the brushstrokes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to be able to give you a painting one day. Right now, I just have brushstrokes. Jesus.
Yeah, well, I've poured paint on the thing. It doesn't mean that it's actually a painting yet.
Yeah. True. Well, good. So do you feel energized to move forward and do another draft? Because I know you've been thinking about it for a while, but you've had other competing priorities.
I do. I do. I do. I do. I do. I do. You know, one of the things that's happening is I'm like, you know, really struggling. I got like 10 pieces. I really haven't had the time to focus on one. I'm trying to focus on them and cut out a bunch of them that I can put off for later and stuff like that. But I'm starting to also feel like maybe that's just not the writer that I am right now with microfiction. I love doing it. I love the sensation that you get from it. I love how you can pack a lot and a lot of punch in something small. But I really would like to get back into Madeline Tin because I really do think that it's something that I enjoyed thinking about. I enjoyed writing it. I had a lot of fun with it, and it can only get more fun if I'm working towards the story that I want to make.